Welcome to the podcast hosted by timecam.com on how to stay on top of your work.
So hello everyone, welcome back to the series of podcasts Stay on Top of Your Work. And today my guest is Julius Solaris, and he's the editor of Event Manager blog, the #1 blog worldwide for event professionals, covering topics such as event planning, social media for events, event technology, event trends, event inspiration, but also destination management, marketing, and meeting planning. He has been named one of 25 most influential individuals in the meeting industry in 2015 by Successful Meetings magazine. And he has been included in Timecam's list of top project management influencers of 2017. He is also the author of over 10 books on event technology and innovation. And he's a sought-after keynote speaker. Hi, Julius. I'm really happy to have you here today.
Hey, Kate, everyone. My pleasure to be here. Very excited for this.
So am I. Okay, so for the beginning, Julius, can you say something more about you and your professional interests?
Absolutely. Well, it's obvious, I guess, from the intro that you made that I love events and, event planning. I guess I made my passion for events with my, I guess, back in the days, kind of, little experience that I had. We're talking about 10 years plus ago. I started a blog about it when blogs were the Instagram or the YouTube of today, I guess. And, it's been, the rest is history to a certain extent. We've been able to grow the blog as a hobby, then as my full-time gig, now as a business that employs several people, and has grown to be sort of a worldwide phenomenon. So, I guess I'm living the dream when it gets to being able to do what I love, which is writing about events and share value with event planners freely and make a living out of it and support a lot of families through it. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds fantastic. So I'd like to ask you, what is event technology? Because I think not everyone knows what exactly this covers.
Absolutely. So when we talk about event technology, in general, there's two main conceptions when you mention technology and events. So there's the AV side of things, so audiovisual, so all those guys that you see at conferences in the back that kind of, monitor all the audio, all the lights, and it's a very specific technical hardware-based type of technology that you have at events. And then there's event technology as event planners conceive it, which is a more recent phenomenon that has evolved in the past 7 or 8 years. And it's really, especially the software component of whatever goes into event planning. So we're talking to the most famous applications, so software such as Cvent or Eventbrite to manage registration, ticketing, which are the most popular and the oldest type of event technologies, to the most recent ones. So we're talking about event apps, so apps specifically made for events, interaction type of apps where you can ask live Q&As and have people engage at conferences. And the more recent ones, artificial intelligence, concierge, bots, virtual reality, so more exciting type of evolution, I guess, of technology applied to events. So there's a strong software component in those. There's also a hardware component in some instances. We also tend to include also whatever goes around social media and the use of social media for events within event technology, although not semantically correct. When we mention event technology, we also talk about the use of social networks for promotion, engagement at events, follow-up, feedback. So this is kind of the ecosystem of event technology today.
Okay, that sounds really like it's a huge topic to cover, actually. It's not that simple as I thought.
It is.
So I was thinking that when we talk about events and the technology, because it's a really wide topic, as I said, do you think this type of technology can be used outside of event management?
Absolutely. I mean, we are obviously talking, hear about project management specifically, you know, and a lot of the two fields have a lot to share because, you know, events are complex projects by definition. You know, they're limited in time and have to happen in a short period of time as well. So they're very pressure intensive projects, I would say. Not that, you know, other type of projects are not, but events specifically have a incredible number of contingencies. As a result, the technology that has been created for events can easily be applied to project planning and project management, team collaboration. There's a lot of those components in the industry. But if you take, for example, event apps, that's another instance where the same type of concept has been applied to different type of industries. So, and you know, with the recent updates in the Apple Store with templated apps, you know, event apps and restaurant apps, for example, have been targeted by these updates. So there's a lot of synergies in how these technologies have been created. Then if you take concierge, for example, apps, so apps that where you can ask questions, chat bots and all of that, the applications are absolutely outside of the event industry, from hospitality, hotels to simple customer service on websites where you can interact with chatbots. So events usually are an application. So whenever there's a customer service / marketing / engagement component, you will see that there will be an event technology application there, but it doesn't mean that it's limited to it. Now, would I recommend to use event technology for your business specifically? Probably not, unless, you know, you have an event component, a live component in it.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to project management, because you kind of have to organize certain events sometimes, right? So this is project management as well, in some part.
Oh yeah.
So what strategies do you use in managing an event?
Well, you know, every event is different, first of all. So there's no blueprint. I don't believe in blueprints when it gets to event planning. Whoever sells you the innovative way to plan events, you know, they're telling you a big lie, because there's no innovative way to do all events. Each event is unique. Each event has its own stakeholders, business model, objectives. It has to be treated as that. You know, it's a step that we skip all the time. But recurringly, when people write to me, every day I got 10, 15 emails from event planners asking me, how do I do this? My challenge is that. And consistently, the most recurring topic is, how do I satisfy my attendees? How do I create something new? How do I create something relevant for the people that want me to attend my event? And the problem with that is the thinking that we're skipping the objective setting part of it and immediately moving into doing stuff, the executional part of it. And I know in project management where sometimes we go in the same direction. We get down to business immediately, start looking at whatever, the WBS and all those very specific tasks, right? Getting those done, taking them off the lists. But event planners as project management professionals are realizing that their job is moving from being executional to being strategic. And so the objective of what you're trying to achieve, what is the main objective? I mean, am I trying to make my boss happy for a corporate event, or am I trying to sell tickets? So that defines the whole plan and gives priority to what you need to be doing. And as for every project, events are no different. I believe there is a component of hygiene, things you have to be doing, and usually those are legacy from previous years. And then there's a component that is specifically to that new year, new edition of your event, and it adds a new layer of campaigns that you're trying to do for your event, whether it's a speaker selection, a theme, or, you know, engagement levels, activities, social program. You're creating that new layer of things that obviously have a component of risk within it because they're new. So it's always important to get the hygiene done. And the concept of hygiene is also very interesting, because some people think of hygiene as, let's put centerpieces and canopies there. I think of hygiene as Wi-Fi. Is it working? Which is a problem that we have at a lot of events these days, isn't it? So yeah, another interesting perspective there. But yeah, get the important things done first, and then move to whatever is you know, the new theme of the year. And this is super general, I guess, advice.
No, it's actually what what most of my guests also advise to, like do first things first and then the rest. So that's actually pretty
Good
cool.
to hear.
Yes. Okay, so let's go back to technology. Innovation and technology. I think these two things are connected with each other. How do you think they influence the business world?
Well, I mean, especially in the event industry, I've been battling all of my career as an editor of a blog to push innovation within the event industry, which has been one of the most resistant industry to change I've ever seen. At least I monitor other industries, and I'm sometimes envious of how they embrace change and innovation so quickly. But to a certain extent, I started to blame event planners for that back in the days. I kind of moved away from that because I understand where they come from. They have to think of a lot of stuff. They have to think of a lot of, you think about an event, you have to think about the budget, the marketing, the security of your guests, the catering, the speakers, the AV that is not working, and now you want to add another layer, which is event technology, these innovations and all these new formats and these new things. You're adding layers of risks to a very complex project already. So I believe, and I've been a strong supporter of an approach that we have in all our books. I repeat it time and time again. We did one called the Event Tech Bible, which is a sort of comprehensive framework to apply technology to your event, which is nothing I invented, is pushed by the Harvard Business Review, and it's called incremental innovation. So the concept of applying change, applying new things and in increments. So step by step without disrupting your processes. I think this is especially relevant for your audience. When you have complex processes in place, the last thing you want to do is come in and tell to your team, okay, this is how we do things today. We're changing the whole software. You're adding layers of disruption to a very complex balance already. So that doesn't work for events, I believe. What works in events is trying small projects, small experiments, analyze those experiments, try to establish some evidence that you have a positive outcome, and then invest more the next year. It never works to immediately disrupt your processes with a lot of innovation. So the way we approach innovation is more important than innovation in itself, because innovation in itself can be buzzwords. 10 years ago, people were saying that we were going to use holograms in 2008, and that was going to be the thing. Have you ever seen holograms at events? I haven't. So if you were investing in holograms in 2008 to follow the buzz, you probably would have been penalized by that. So the approach to innovation is super important.
Mm-hmm. So technology and innovation is all connected with progress. And progress is also connected with the development of special tools and different, I would say, equipment, which makes our work easier. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's important to make use of such tools? And what tools do you use, which you could maybe recommend?
100%. Oh no, I'm a tool person. I believe in tools. I don't believe in just the idea of just the need to change. We're in January, we make New Year's resolutions. I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to start eating healthy. Fine, but you need to have the tools to achieve that. And I'm a believer in the fact that you need the tools to do it. Whether it's a book, whether it's a software, whether it's an app, whatever works for you, you have to find the tools that enable you to get there, because just an idea won't do it. And you have to get down to business at some stage, and you will need some support from some places because it's going to be too much to handle by yourself, right? So for my business specifically, I wouldn't live without tools such as Trello, which I think has revolutionized project management, especially for people like myself. I'm not able to follow very detailed, very specific, complex spreadsheets, look into the details. So I need something to prioritize. And honestly, I've had Trello on my radar for like 4 years or something like that. But I started to use it just a few months ago. I actually spent the time and said, you know what, I'm going to start using this because I cannot track things as I'm tracking them right now with different docs and people all over the place. It doesn't work. And you need to spend the time to understand it at the beginning. I'm still getting some of my team to, I'm begging on their heads and saying, no, you have to do it. I don't care. We need to get on it, because otherwise I cannot keep track of things and we're losing on the longer term. So, but they need to be helpful. And if it doesn't work for them specifically, use whatever it works for you. But on a higher level, I need to have visibility of that. So you need to use that component for me as your boss, let's say. For your personal life, do whatever you want. Then things like Slack, absolutely important for, we have a distributed team all over the world. I could not use emails. I've been, the first month we used Slack, I was like seriously threatening people. Like, if you send me another email, you're going to be gone. So use Slack instead. So it took a little bit of threatening at the beginning, but we got there eventually, and they cannot use anything else right now. They love it. We have all the files there. We don't need to go anywhere else. So, it's importantly crazy. We work with content, so we couldn't work without Google Docs. That's, a must for us, because we need to be able to collaborate with different writers. We need to be able to edit and comment live. I know some other platforms do it, but it's nowhere comparable when it gets to ease of use. So, these three tools for me are necessary. Then, it's the basic easiness of user experience, integration with other tools. It applies to all the types of technology, even in events. The most successful ones usually are very simple type of technology. They're not complex.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say that we use the tools you mentioned at TimeCamp, and I have to agree that they are really great and they make work easy and smooth. So that's true. Yes. So that's really cool. I'd like to ask you about startups, because TimeCamp is a startup company. And I think that startups appeared with the emergence of great technology and technological progress. What would be your advice to a startup that enters the business world?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. I took the topic of startups as a very dear topic to me in the event industry. I think I was one of the first to use the word event startups as, to identify startups that create technology for the event industry, more than around 8 years ago now. So, and I've been the proponent and the founder of many startup competitions within the biggest exhibitions in the event industry, and judge for many around the world. We've been featuring and promoting startups from inception. Some of them have failed. Some of them have become household names in the event industry. So I believe that the more developers create tools for an industry, the more the attention, the better for the industry as such. I believe that one of the biggest push we've had to events in the past 5 years has been driven almost exclusively by technology. Because if it were for some event planners, we would still be doing the same things all over again, and everybody's bored of panels, everybody's bored of conferences, and go there and listen to one person speak. But if you think about the latest developments, the ability to interact with a speaker or have Q&A sessions and all of that, they've been driven by tools that are enabling that type of conversation. So that changes also the way you plan your event to begin with. So for us in the event industry, startups are vital. I've seen a correlation between the number of products that gets created for the event industry and the success of the event industry as a whole, the performance of the event industry as a whole. So there's a direct correlation. The more startups get involved, the more the investment, the more the funding, the more, household names are closing record funding. We got last year, we got Cvent closing 1.6 billion acquisition by Vista. We had, several 30, 40 million rounds, which were unheard of in the industry as such. So I can see since the very beginning of when we started pushing that specifically, how a lot of venture capitalists are taking notice and investing more and more, which is good news.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you are the speaker at events. I'd like to ask you, what do you think, from your own experience, what skills should a good speaker have? Also, how to organize a good event?
All right. Well, these two massive questions that will require probably several hours to answer, on my perspective at least. So I guess from a speaker's perspective, I feel lucky because I've been both an event organizer and a speaker. So I can see both ends, and I can understand both needs to a certain extent. It puts me in a very, very unique position, I guess. And that's why some of the most successful posts that we've done on the blog are actually when we talk about speakers and when we talk about what event planners want and what speakers don't understand and what event planners don't understand. It's a complex, intricate relationship. So, okay, on the speaker side, there's a lot of speakers out there that, their main concern is themselves. So they want to go out and feel good with their ego. I do understand that process because, you have to be brave to stand in front of people. It's not something that everybody can do, to speak in public, then dying. So, it's actually, it's that bad,
Didn't
right?
know that.
So, oh no, yeah, speaking in public is fear number one. So it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of self-confidence to do that. But at some stage, once you're in front of the audience, you made it there, you said, hi, everyone, then you need to change your focus. Your focus becomes the audience, not yourself, not your story, or your story in as much as it impacts your audience. Now, I'm not a fan of motivational speakers as such. I'm sorry. I believe we go to conferences and events, yes, to be inspired, but most of all, to filter through the noise, to get education, to learn about something, to connect with other audiences in this overload of information that we are. Events have a role to connect us with the stories, to focus on something without being distracted all the time. So we have that amazing opportunity, but it's down to the speaker to make it relevant and useful for the audience. It's down to the speaker to be engaging, to not speak all the time, get people involved and collaborate. We learn when we talk to other people. We engage with something when we connect with our peers, not with the speaker, with the speakers and our peers. So what are you doing as a speaker to connect your audience? What are you doing to get them to discuss on something? Sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't, like plenary sessions, huge keynote sessions. I've done those, but I try to incorporate some elements of that to get some level of engagement, even giving them 2 minutes during my keynote session to connect and discuss why virtual reality is a threat to the event industry, or why is it the best opportunity we've had in years. So this is a topic that always sparks conversations, and I get people to connect, and they always remember it. Oh yeah, that talk about virtual reality I had there. So, get them an ability to connect, introduce each other, connect with each other, because they're going to remember that even more so than your presentation. We forget 95% of the presentations that we hear. So we need to, that 5% has to be memorable. What are you trying? What is your message? What are you trying to make me do? Events are successful when they change behavior. How are you making me change my behavior? What you're trying to make me do after your presentation? Don't just throw at me information. I can find information 10 times better than your presentation, in much better formats than being there and listening to a scared person speaking on stage. So there are definitely much better ways to achieve that. So you have to think, why am I here and what am I trying to communicate? What do I want them to take out of it? How do you plan a great event? You can read eventmanagerblog.com. That's the best way.
All right, that's cool. And I like how you spoke about the good speakers' characteristics. And I think we can actually apply it to a leader, how to be a good leader and a good project management. Do you think it can work like that?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's all about that. I mean, we feel sometimes that as leaders, as bosses, as project managers, we need to be in charge, and we have to show all this control freakiness, and being able to track everything that is happening, and micromanage everybody that is around us. When people really, I mean, if they're being chosen for the job, that's a problem that we have with event planners choosing speakers. Because they choose speakers and then they want to control their presentation, they want to control their talk, they want to control everything that they do. What I'm saying is, if you chose them, right, you're trusting them to deliver the message. You obviously give them a brief, but you're trusting them to deliver the best possible message to your audience. You help them to understand your audience, but then it's up to them. You cannot otherwise go on stage and do it yourself, because why are you spending your money? And it's the same for teams and projects, I believe. Why are you hiring people if you're not ultimately trusting them to do the job? And with complex processes, I guess project managements are very similar to event professionals. We're huge control freaks. We want to control everything. But I think successful projects are those where everybody's empowered to do mistakes, to make mistakes, but they're empowered to do their best as well. So how do you do that as a leader? How do you connect your team together? How you get your team to work together as one entity? That's what makes amazing leadership, and that's what makes projects happen.
Nice. I really like your advices, and I wish we could have more time to talk about it, but unfortunately we don't. Julius, you are the author of over 10 books. And if you were to choose just one, which according to you is the best, which one would it be and why? And what are the topics that you cover in that book which you think are so important?
Well, I have to be biased. I mean, I guess the last one that we did, which is the one that I mentioned earlier, the Event Tech Bible, is probably the one that I put the most effort into, because it's a fresh topic where there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of planners spending money into technology and losing money because they don't know what to do with it. So we had to create a complete framework to implement the technology at events. And I can assure you it's not easy, because you have to consider so many aspects and angles. So how do you devise something that it's universal for so many types of events? So that specifically talks about the correct way to implement it. So it's a strategic framework that works for any type of event. And also as a very practical component. We gave in that book 1,000 tips to use technology at events. I'm not over-exaggerating that. It's 1,000 tips in it. So you will find 1,000 ways to use technologies at events, that actually deliver value. So we had a strategic part, but then we have to remember we're talking to event planners that are practical people. So we have to have sort of a more tangible aspect. So it did extremely well. Thousands and thousands of event planners downloaded it and loved it. So yeah, I could not recommend it enough for those that want to sort of start approaching the topic of technology at events.
Okay, so my list of books to read is slowly expanding. That's nice. I'd like to ask you two more questions before we finish. The first one is, what do you get inspired by? Because you basically, from what you say, I see that you are really inspired by life in general. But can you explain a little bit what inspires you?
I guess producing content for the web in general puts a lot of challenges on your path. You have to be ready to adapt quickly, to change, to be flexible. And really understand what needs to be pursued and what needs to be discarded, what is just fashion. I mean, we see it all the time with content. If you do any type of content marketing, you will know how, fast things are changing. Should you use Instagram? Should you use Snapchat? Should you focus on SEO? Should you do Facebook groups? So there's always a lot of questions. I get inspired by challenges that come my way. We recently completely restructured the way we do content on our Event Manager blog. We moved from publishing a lot of posts every week to a smaller number that are more in depth and create more change in our readers. So we change all the time. My team hates me to death because we change a lot. But you have to do that if you have the objective in mind that you want to create value for your readers. I'm happy to see people that come back to us and say, oh, you completely changed the way I work. You inspired us for our next event. Thank you for helping us get into the event planning industry. Whatever it is, that type of feedback is what inspires me to keep going, I guess, after 10 years now.
Okay, that sounds good. The last question, because our podcast is called Stay on Top of Your Work. How do you stay on top of your work?
Right. Tough one for me. I'm based in Las Vegas, Nevada, so Pacific time. My team is all in Europe, mostly 90% of it is in Europe.
Oh.
So I stay on top by waking up very early and try to get a lot of work done in the early morning and try to be as efficient as possible. I don't accept any type of waste when it gets to extra email, extra wording, extra nothing. I keep it as lean as possible. We have such a small team and we have a huge output. We are one of the biggest websites in the event industry. And we're a team of 5-6 people, most of them freelancers. So you have to optimize. I'm a big optimization freak, lean freak. So trying to find the tools and the processes that we can sustain and scale on, that's the way I work. I work for scalability, infinite scalability. That's what I like. And sometimes it's tough. Sometimes you have to try things and they fail. But you find that one thing that works and you build on that. That's how I do it.
All right. That's great. Okay, Julius, thank you very much for the interview. It was my pleasure to talk to you. I hope we can talk more someday because you're a really interesting person and I got really inspired by you.
Oh, thank you. Anytime you want, I'm here.
Okay, so thank you very much. And to my audience, if you enjoyed the interview, and I'm sure you did, make sure to check out our other interviews, and you can find more information about Julius under the podcast, so make sure to check it out, especially his books. Thank you, Julius, once more.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
This podcast was brought to you by Tencam. You can listen to it on iTunes and SoundCloud. Subscribe to get more content and always stay on top of your work.